Hey folks, this is Simon, and today Maxon announced Cinema 4D R16. And I had the honor to beta test a lot of the features in the last months, and in this video I just want to show you my top 10 features of R16. So let's jump right into Cinema. I can show you here the About section. We have Cinema 4D R16 with a brand new splash screen, nice and shiny. And the first thing I want to show you is this little button over here. Let me just unlock it that you can see what it actually does. And you can already see the word solo here, and this is actually a feature that has been requested for years, and most people use a tiny plugin for that. And now we have something similar inbuilt in Cinema 4D, and it really was about time to implement this. So basically what it does is pretty simple. If you have an object and you have a bunch of objects, actually something like this, then you can actually click an object, hit viewport solo single, and then you only see this one object here. This is of course useful in scenes where you have thousands of objects and you want to focus on this one here, and then you can click viewport solo off again and you see all of them. But we have a few more modes here. One is the viewport solo selection. If you hit this and turn on viewport solo single, then always the object which is selected will be soloed. So if I click on the cube here, we will see only the cube, the sphere, only the sphere. And if you click somewhere else, nothing is selected, so you see all of them. So if you now click also here in the viewport, on this one, you only see that. Click somewhere else, now click that. So this is actually a nice solo function, I think. And of course you also have the option to do that in a hierarchy. So let me uncheck this one again, turn it off, and just drop them into a hierarchy. And maybe I will just copy them so that we have a few more objects like this. Now we have a big hierarchy here. So for example, if I take the cube here in the middle of the hierarchy and hit viewport solo single, I will only see the cube. But if I hit viewport solo hierarchy, I will see the cube and all the objects which are below the hierarchy of the cube, so all its childs, which is pretty cool. And it also works with the solo selection. So if you hit like the cone, you will see the cone and its full hierarchy, or then you only have these three objects here. So this is pretty handy and a good feature. It's a tiny feature, but it helps you in everyday workflows. So I like this one very much. So this is number 1 of my top 10 features. Okay, let's see what else do we get. Deformers. Some stuff happened in the deformers, and you might know that the displacer deformer, for example, always had this fall off tab here, where you can define in which area the deformer was activated. Where is it? Let's take a spherical fall off, and if you have a plane, for example, and you put the displacer into the plane, this is too big actually, and you take a noise, this, now you can see it. And then you could take the displacer deformer and move it around, and you only see the strength of the deformer inside of this fall off. That was something which had the displacer deformer for a long time now. And actually Maxon updated most of the deformers with this fall off. So the bend deformer has it now, the twist has it now, the melt, I think, yeah, most of them have it now, where it makes sense, of course. So here the taper deformer has it now. So you will find out it's a big list of deformers which have the fall off tab now, which is pretty cool and makes them more flexible in daily use. Okay, let's see. When we're talking about deformer, we come to point 3 of my top 10 new features in R16. So let me just create an object like this. I'll just randomly extrude some stuff here that we can see it good. Like this, and maybe like this. And yeah, we'll just reduce the phone angle here. Okay, as you might know, Maxon have rewritten the bevel tool in R15. So if I take the bevel tool here, yeah, I could really good just bevel the edges, which was a complete new algorithm. The thing is, it's always destructive modeling, and especially beveled edges is something what you want to change later. Maybe if the client says, okay, this edge is too round, can you change it please, then you pretty much have a problem if it's really modeled into this thingy. And now we have a bevel deformer, so you can just drop it in here and you see instantly that it starts to bevel the edges. So let me show you the options here. Actually the options are exactly the same as in the bevel tool. So you have the offset, you can subdivide them a few times. Excuse me. You have different shapes, so round, user or profile. The ending options, partial rounding, all the stuff that we know. Also you can say use angle, because right now it uses all the edges and bevels all the edges. For example here it doesn't make much sense. So use angle, and then you have a threshold or an angle which you can adjust, which is pretty cool. Again, we'll take all of them. Of course you can also bring selections in here. So if I say I just want to round the edges on these parts, for example, like this, you can create a selection, set selection, then you have the tag here, and in the bevel deformer you have a selection field, drag it in here. And now the bevel deformer only uses the selection here. You can also create a second selection somewhere else and place it in here, and so on, which is pretty cool. You can also create two bevel deformers, and let's say I also want to bevel those edges, this, don't know, maybe these, like this. So I will create a second selection tag over here and place this into my second selection deformer. Maybe give it another name. 2, and this is edge selection 1. So the first bevel deformer takes edge selection 1, and the second bevel deformer takes edge selection 2. And now we can adjust the offset, for example, differently for both edges or the subdivisions. So this is pretty cool. It's non-destructive modeling, and I would really like to see Maxon continue with those kinds of features. Maybe it's possible to take all the modeling commands and build kind of modifiers or deformers here to make it non-destructive. So this is actually, yeah, my top feature number 3 in Cinema 4D R16. So what else do we got? Let me delete this. I'm not a coder, obviously, because I built most of my stuff in Expresso, but I tried to learn a little bit Python in the last days. And one thing you notice when you work with scripting in R15 or earlier versions is when you take the script manager, create a new Python script, and let's say you have written this incredible piece of code over the last weeks, and for some reason you don't save your stuff, you just work on it, and then your cat enters your room and the cat walks across your keyboard and something like this happens. So actually in earlier releases of Cinema 4D, then you're pretty much screwed because there's no undo command in the script manager. But now in Cinema R16 they build an undo command, so just hit Ctrl Z, you can undo all the steps and you come back to the original version of your script. So yeah, it's a tiny feature, but I think people that code a lot will love this, and it was a big thing for them not to have an undo command in their script manager. You also have like redo, copy, cut, paste, all this stuff here. So feature number 4 in R16 in my list. So what else? The next thing is also very small feature, but I still like it. So I just created an object, converted to a polygon object, and then we have a UV tag here. And it happened to me all the time when I want to take a look at the UVs of an object. Then you have to switch the layout to UV edit and all this stuff. And in R16 you can now shift double click on the UV tag here, and a tiny window opens and you see the UVs of this object, which is really cool. It's a very small feature, but I like it a lot, and it helps in the workflow. So next feature, we move forward. Also a very tiny thing, and I think a few people will say, is that so good? And actually I thought the same when I saw them for the first time. So I will create an object, and you see those keyframe dots have changed. They are slightly bigger, and they highlight when you hover with the mouse over them. But that's actually just the visual update. What's really new is that when you want to create a keyframe, in earlier versions you have to hold down Control and then click on that button. And actually that changed. So in R16 you just click on that record button and the keyframe is created. You see it down here. And if you click it again, it's gone. And what's also cool is when you have a lot of parameters and you want to set a lot of keyframes, you can now paint the keyframes like you do with the stop lights here. So just click on the first one, hold down the mouse, and then, just move downwards. And then you created keyframes for all of them. And you can undo that again by just repeating this action. And actually when I saw the feature for the first time, I thought, oh man, I think I will create a lot of keyframes accidentally when I work here. But actually it didn't happen, at least for me. So I haven't had any problems. And if it might happen that you create a keyframe and you don't want it, just hit it again and it's gone. So I think it's a good one. Even if it's a really tiny feature. Okay, now we come to a little bit bigger stuff. So let me create a new scene. I must say that I'm not an expert in this field, but it's still a little bit exciting because in R16 we have a motion tracker. You see it up here. So basically what you do, you create a motion tracker object here. And let's take a look at the settings. So first of all, we go to the footage tab, and I have downloaded some free footage from hollywoodcamerawork.us. They have good plates for practicing, especially match moving and all this stuff. You have the settings which we know from the camera calibrator. Then we go to the 2D tracking. Here you can define the number of tracks that you want to have, for example 50. And then I just hit auto track. You see it's preloading the footage down here. That's processing the frames. And the 2D track is done. And you can see the tiny dots here on my footage. And if I scrub through that, you see that it's a nice track. All the points are pretty stable. And when you're done with that, of course you have a manual tracking here where you can specify specific points in your footage that you want to track, and some option for the search pattern of each point and all this stuff here. And under reconstruction, you first of all select your solve mode. So right now it's full 3D reconstruction, which gives you a full solve of the 3D scene. But you can also make a track for a nodal pan, which is usually a little bit tricky because you don't have parallax in your objects. Or you can choose just to make a planar track for creating masks or stuff like that. In our case it's full 3D reconstruction. The focal length in this case is unknown but constant. The sensor size is actually also unknown. I don't know it. I will just try this one, even if I don't think that this is a 35mm. But just for demonstrating the stuff, it should work. Then you run the 3D solver, and it takes some time to process the solver, so we just wait. And we're almost done. Pre-optimization, that sounds good. Optimization. And Come on. So the solve is finished, and now we see we have a camera and a bunch of dots in our viewport. I'm not so sure. I think the color of the dots represent the quality of the track, but I'm not really sure. I should check that again. And if I scrub through the footage, we see that our camera is moving, and that looks pretty good. If we click on the motion tracker, we can also under footage create a background object, that we have the plate in the background, and of course we should look through the camera. And if we do so, we see our track and all the points stick to the ground pretty good. And if I now start to create some random objects, that's pretty big, and place it on one of these null objects somewhere here, maybe make it maybe 10 centimeters big and place it 5 centimeters above, +5, then it should stick to the ground. And I will just create a bright color for that one, something like that maybe, so you can see it. Now hit play, you see that it sticks pretty good to the floor. We could try another one, maybe something around here. So oops, sorry. I will copy my cube. Oh, come on, it's too early. Transfer like this. Okay, now we have a second one. And yeah, as I said, I'm not an expert in match moving, but that looks pretty good. So, not too bad. I think it's not PF track or Syndize, but it's pretty good, and it's an inbuilt and very easy and fast solution. You can also draw masks if you want to mask out some stuff to make it more accurate. I should have masked out the guy here running, but it's a nice thing. There are also a lot of tags for the tracker, like where is it? Motion tracker tags, mask constraints, planar constraints, position constraints, camera orientation constraint, where you can define where the ground plane is and all this stuff. But you will find out by yourself, and I'm pretty sure that a few people that have more expertise in match moving will create nice feature videos for this one. But that's a big one, and I think also a nice one. So let's come to the next one, and the next one is actually, I would say, my top feature of R16, because it's very simple and very intuitive and cool. So let's take a look at it. We have a new tool called Polygon Pen. Polygon Pen. And actually this tool is pretty similar to a tool that we had before. So you can just create polygons, very easy, and they're in space. This is what we had earlier. But now we have a few extra features. The first one is this tool here has the tweak function that we know from Cinema R12, I think. After that it was changed. So if you go on vertex, you see the vertex is highlighted, and you can just grab it and move it around without changing the modes here. Same thing goes for the edges, just grab it and move it. Or the face, also grab it and move it. And this is pretty cool. You can also go onto the edge and hold down Control and just extrude another edge. And same thing for the face, just extrude it, if you move it around. So actually it's some kind of a multi-tool now, so because it's so fast. And it's really a lot of fun to work with that, because you can do so much stuff without actually changing the tools, which is pretty cool. But there's more, and this is the part which I like the most, because if you go to the face mode, take the polygon pen, we have a new mode in face mode. If you then just start to draw, you draw a strip of polygons. And after you're done with that, you can instantly grab them, move them around and manipulate them however you want. And this is pretty amazing. Also, you can start on, let's say, this edge, hold down Shift and just continue to draw, and then you draw a second strip out here or here, which is cool. You have like a brush radius here, which defines the size of your polygons. So you can also make it pretty small, like this. Pretty amazing. You can, you can also do it with hold down Control and the middle mouse button. Oh, it's only the middle mouse button, I just recognized, and change it here. This is pretty cool, and you can also go to an edge and hold down Control and extrude another edge, and if you then come close enough to an existing edge, it will snap on there. Can you see that? Which is super cool for modeling, so it makes you very, very fast. So actually for this tool there are thousands of modifier key combinations which you can hold down and create amazing stuff. Let me check, I don't remember how all of them were, so it's quite a lot of stuff. You will find out, and I'm pretty sure Maxon will release another video to show this, what you can do. Actually, you can subdivide edges with this tool, you can build arcs with this tool, and tons of stuff really. And this is really cool. For example, if you go to an edge and extrude it like this, and after you extruded it and you hold down Shift, you can rotate the edge and then you release it, and then you do another one, hold down Shift, and then you do another edge and snap it to here, and then you can build up geometry pretty fast. And as I said, there are a lot of options to play around with this new tool, and it's so flexible. I love it really. I think you can also delete edges if you hold down Control and just click. Yeah. Or you can delete points, or you can delete faces. So really nice tool. I think you can model a lot of stuff without switching the tool or the mode for a single time. So I really love this. But the tool has more to offer. So I have this scene here. It's a 3D scan of a dragon. And let me just switch to Goro shading with lines. And you see now my viewport is black, and this is not because I have a graphics card driver bug or something. So let me just zoom in, and then you see that the mesh of the dragon is really dense. So a lot of detail in here, very high poly count. Actually, I don't know how high it is. Let me check. Object information. So we have about 7 million polygons here, and yeah, quite a lot of stuff. And it's cool if you want to render a still and you have so much detail in here. Let me just switch back to Goro shading. But if you want to do something else with that dragon, for example, you want to fracture it, or you want to animate it and rig it somehow, then it's impossible to use this structure here. And what you need to do is retopo that thing. So you need to paint polygons on top of this high resolution mesh in a lower resolution. And for that, in Cinema 4D, we can also use the polygon pen, which is pretty cool. So I will show you how it works. So we switch to the polygon mode, and we will create an empty polygon. Just as a container for our polygon pen geometry. And then we'll take the polygon pen. And first of all, select the polygon here. In the polygon pen, there's an option called Reproject Result, and this one should be turned on, which means the polygons that you create are projected on the object underneath. So if I now start to draw around here, you see that I can draw polygons. Let me just set the dragon to X-ray, that we can see through the dragon. And maybe I will just take the screen material and put it on our created polygons, just that we can see them better. So I will take this area here. This is really high resolution, and then I start drawing something like this, just in screen space. But when I rotate the camera, you see that our polygons are perfectly aligned to the to the surface of our dragon. which is really cool. And now I can start to take the polygons and move them around, and they will still stick to the surface because they are reprojected in even if you move them around, which means take this point, move it over here, maybe, and this point will still stick to the surface, which is super cool. So in our case, if I want to retopo this face, for example, the head of the dragon, so I would just start, for example, with something like this here, adjust my point slightly to the edge, something like this, then maybe hold down Shift to create another strip, adjust my points here, like this, and you can just move them around on the surface of our dragon, which is really cool. And then maybe something up here. And just so you get the idea. It's pretty fast and very cool. Yeah, extrude another one, another one, another one. And so you can build up new geometry on top of the old one. So I have chosen a pretty high resolution mesh to show that the reprojecting is very good and actually pretty fast, which is nice. And you can, yeah, it's still a lot of work, of course, to retopologize such a high-res mesh, but you get pretty fast results. And yeah, the most important thing is that the reprojecting works. Like this and like this maybe. Okay, so this took me about 2 minutes, and I have the first part of the head of the dragon, and the, yeah, it's perfectly aligned with the surface of the high-res version. So you could work your way through this model, and I would say it's possible within a day you have a very nice topology here on this dragon. Polygon pen, I think the best feature in R16. But there's more. So let me close this scene here, I don't need to save it, and let me delete the polygon here. One big issue of Cinema 4D was always the material system, and actually something changed here. The guys who are hoping for a node-based material system, I must say sorry, not in this release. Maybe in the future somehow. But we have another change in the material system, and this is pretty awesome. So let me create just a, actually I don't need this, I will just use the preview here. So I will create a new material, open it up. Something like, I have so little screen space here, so something like this. And I will open a window for my material, like this. Okay, first of all, if we take a look at our channels, you see it's almost the same, just the tiny change that the specular channel is gone and the reflection channel is now called reflectance. And if we click on that, it looks different. So we have the default specular in our channel, and if I click that, I get the options, and you know these options. You have like the curve here with inner width, specular strength, and all the stuff, which is pretty similar to what we had earlier. But you see that the first tab here is called layers, which mean I can layer different kinds of reflections on top of each other, and I think it's up to 16. I'm not sure about that, but I think it's really a lot. So let me remove this one and create a new one. So I click on add, and then it asks me for the kind of reflection that I want to build. So we have Fong, Ward, and Beckman, all the stuff that we know. Something new is GGX, which is an illumination model, which is, I think it's pretty good for metal surfaces and all this stuff. There's a paper online somewhere which explains it pretty good. So this is a new one. Then we have anisotropic, and this one has also changed. So now it's not an anisotropic fake in the Loomis shader anymore. These are real anisotropic reflections. This stuff for diffuse surfaces, Oranaya, Lambertian. This one is pretty cool for cloth and our old reflection models that we had in earlier versions also. So for now, let me create I will just take a Phong material, and then you see instantly our thing here. I'll just take a look at our first layer. You can give it different names, of course. So in here you can still change the type. So if you click something wrong in the beginning, you can change it in here. And then you have a lot of options here. And this is pretty cool, because the reflection channel now became a whole new shading system, I would say. So, but let's start with the basics here. Roughness. Roughness was called blurriness, I think, in earlier releases. So this is basically the same. You have a slider here, and your material gets blurred. You have the reflection strength. You have a specular strength inside of the material. And when I make it really the roughness pretty high, you can see that we have the curve here, and it's separated in two halves, which means the left side is the reflection side and the right side is the specular side. And reflection and specular are physically connected, so specular helps the render engine to simulate the lighting correctly. And we have a bump strength slider here. So what has changed is that we have these tiny black arrows, and they look pretty unimportant, but actually that's the best feature since, I don't know, 10 years. So if you open that one up, you get a texture slot, which means you can now finally load in textures which define where it's rough and where it's not. So if you want a material which is in some areas blurry and in some areas not, you don't have to stack like 10 materials with different values and alpha channels on top of each other. Now you can do it like you can do it in Octane or V-Ray. Just take a texture slot here. For example, I don't know, maybe something like this. Just a black and white image, which now defines in which areas it's blurred and in which it's not. And you see that instantly it looks so much more realistic, because you get this variation which was not possible with the old reflection channel. With this texture in here, you can then just adjust the roughness, and you see here it looks so good. This tiny detail in here. Let me make it a little bit bigger, even if it renders a bit longer. But yeah, you can see it. Even if you just mix it in for 2% or something, there's a slight difference, and it looks so much better. Yeah, very natural. So let's do something like this maybe. Yeah, so this looks very cool. That's nice. In the next one you have the layer color, which is just the reflection color. So you can make a red reflection. You get the feedback here. Of course, if it's darker than white, it will mix differently with the diffuse channel. So maybe I will set the diffuse to a pretty dark gray, that we see a lot of the reflectance here. Yeah, now you can see it. It's tinted red, and we have our blurriness map and everything. Looks really cool. You can of course also load in maps here, or shaders and all this stuff. We have a layer mask, which is kind of an alpha for the reflection. Of course you can also load in textures here. Layer Fresnel is now directly implemented, and you can choose if it should be a dielectric or a conductor material. For dielectrics we have some presets here, like milk or all the stuff. Or we can choose a conductor material, and then we have different stuff like iron and all the stuff. Or you just take the custom, have an IOR value and an absorption value for conductor materials, and just an IOR for dielectric materials. So you see that we have a lot of functions here that we haven't had before, and that brings the whole reflection stuff in Cinema 4D really to a new level. Layer sampling, where you can decide special sampling settings based on your reflections, which is super cool. But the most important thing is that you can layer different kinds of reflections, and I want to show you a little example of that. Let me just delete this one again and create a new one. I will take a, let's take a GGX just to use it one time in this overview. And I want to create a flake layer, like for car paint or stuff like that. So I will create metallic flakes, metallic flakes. And for this I need a rough material and maybe also color, so I will take, I don't know, maybe something like blue, something brighter, green. And in the roughness channel I will use a noise. So of course it's not the best way to do it with a noise, but just to demonstrate it, it should be fine. I will take a silver noise and activate some roughness here. So now you can see we have differences in the roughness channel. Maybe I will increase the contrast here, that we have really blurry and really glossy surfaces, something like that maybe. And I will make it much smaller, 2%. Now maybe a little bit bigger again, 5. Something like that. So now we have this sparkly surface, and I will now take exactly this noise and copy it. Maybe add Maxon. Please, here would again node-based material system be very handy, but yeah, maybe in the future. So now we'll go into the bump channel and place the noise also in the bump, and let's see at the result. And now you see that we have a very sparkly surface. Maybe make it like 2% or something, not that much. Oh, a little bit more, maybe 5. Yeah, that looks good. So now it looks very metallic, so we could continue to build up this shader. Maybe we could go into a layer mask and place the noise also in here. Oh, that was the wrong one, sorry. Paste. And now you see we have spots where it's very shiny and blurry, and we have spots where are no flakes. So pretty cool. Now we can take our diffuse color again and maybe choose a dark red or something. Maybe something blue. So our diffuse color is now dark blue, and we have green metallic flakes on top. And we have our bump here. Let's make it a little bit more obvious. And the problem in earlier versions was that you only have a global bump channel here, which means I couldn't layer up more than one reflection with different bump values, and this has also changed. So this is now our metallic flakes layer, and now I will go back to layers and create a second one. Let's just take a Phong. And now I can specify the blend mode of my Phong layer. And I will set this one to add, so it gets added on top of the first layer. And you will see the result looks interesting right now. And the thing is, when you have car paint, you have the flakes layer, which is very bumpy. And on top of that, you have the clear coat, which doesn't have this bump of those tiny flakes. And this is the cool part in our new reflection channel. So I will just name this layer. It's called code material. We'll jump into that code, and now we come back to the bump strength slider, and we can now just drag it down to 0%, and you will see that we now get a material which looks really amazing. So we have underneath the metallic flakes, which are very bumpy, and you see the complex reflections on top of this material. And on top of that, we add a second reflection layer, which is a clear coat, which is like a second layer without any bump. And this looks really, really cool. And now, of course, we could adjust the Fresnel of our clear coat material, that it's not so much. So maybe something like this. Yeah, and now you have beautiful metallic car paint. Maybe we'll take another object here, the double torus maybe. It takes some time to recalculate. Ah, nice. Ah, beautiful. So yeah, this is the new reflection channel in the material system. There are tons of other features hidden somewhere with the shaders, but this is really amazing and really a game changer for Cinema 4D users. And yeah, really cool. So reflection channel, nice new feature. Oh, of course, which I wanted to show you also. Almost forgot this one. Talking about reflections, if we take a look at the... Let me remove this one. Just create a new anisotropic material. You will see that it also changed quite a lot. So pre R16 we had to use the Lumos shader in the luminance channel, and it didn't make any sense because it was just a fake, and yeah, it was just for the specular part of the reflection. And now we have a new shader, a real anisotropic shader, and which is pretty cool. Here you get a preview of your setting, and you can set it to planar, for example. Use the scale angle. Let me see how it worked here. Anisotropy, and you see immediately what's happening here, that you can stretch out the reflection, that you can rotate it to make stuff like brushed metal. We have scratches, primary and secondary scratches. We can layer on top of each other, we can rotate them. Yeah, as I said, you can do a lot of stuff with that, and it's pretty amazing, and I'm sure that we will see a lot of much more amazing and realistic looking renders in the future, thanks to the new Reflectance channel. Okay, and last but not least, we have a new feature, and I think this is also a big one for a lot of people. We all know in R15 Maxon introduced Team Render, and it was a nice thing in a lot of cases, but for people who had a workflow based on NetRender, it was a nightmare, because the web interface was gone, and somehow organizing your render jobs was kind of strange. And now we have the Team Render server. Let me start this. And we have this window here where you can set all your important stuff. Just start this server. You will see a list of your machines here. And then we have this button, and when you read down here, you see Open Web Interface. And I will just open it, bring the window over here, maybe like this. Let me resize it. Like that, okay. And default, I think it's admin, login. And now we have this new interface here. There's a render job, which I created earlier to test the thing. So here you have info. Click on this one. You will get information about your server, the jobs, which is empty right now because I don't have a job running. Network information, which plugins are installed, all the stuff, your users, and you of course can log out. If you want to create a new job, it's pretty much like an old NetRenderer, but this time just for Team Render. So add a job, give it a name, render job 1, create it, and then here's your job, and here you get the details of your job. The user, when it started, how many frames, progress. You also have a progress bar here when the job is running. You have a log down here, your results, your assets, all the stuff. You can upload your assets. That's a little bit better than the old uploader, I think. And when you're done setting everything up, you just hit start and the job starts rendering. And yeah, if you have a lot of jobs, like a second one, render job 2, it's right below here. basically, yeah, I think it's much better than R15 release of Team Render. I think it can still be improved. I would like to see an interface which is, more, that you can see more details at once, so that I don't have to click on the job to see the stuff. But this is actually pretty, it's much better than R15 Team Render. So now you can organize your jobs again in a web browser, which is really, really cool. So this is actually everything that I wanted to show you in R16. Very cool release. I've shown you the tools that I like the most. Let me know what kind of tools you like. There's a lot of stuff which I haven't touched in this video because it's just too much. But maybe I will do another one in the future. So yeah, let me know what you think, and I hope we all get our fingers pretty fast on Cinema 4D R16. Bye bye.